you actually look forward to coming to the subcontinent, the volume of overs, and also the challenges it presented?
Not really. It was a bit hard bowling to you guys. I think I look back. I think New Zealand, like when I first started, Eden Park used to spin, and even though it's tiny, it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun bowling there because it did spin. And then New Zealand moved into the drop-in wickets. The boundary sizes got smaller and smaller. So I would say that at the start of my career, it wasn't as daunting as it got later on. And then so going to the subcontinent was different from the perspective of never been the focal point of a bowling attack before. You grow up, as we talked about, you go to New Zealand and it's about the seam bowlers. First time I went to India I was the main attraction in a lot of ways, and that was a new feeling. It was always about the spin bowler. Old Indian spinners would talk about you. Old Indian spinners would be there to give advice, and that was the first time I really had tapped into that psyche and was allowed to hear how different people went about it, because I'd heard John Bracewell, and that was probably about it. So I got a nice opportunity to hear the likes of Bishan speak, and Maninder, I met him a couple of times. So it was fun, but I think that's quickly stripped away the fun bit and the attention when you are bowling against quality batsmen. And I think that's the thing that I had to learn the quickest was these Indian batsmen play the game a different way, and it was awesome to watch to see them play. But then you got the other bit of a wicket that deteriorated, and you got opportunities. So I like the fact that in India, a first innings could be a real grind, but the second innings could be, all go, heap of fun, and a really different ball game from innings to innings.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that, because you bowl on wickets, and sometimes playing county cricket, playing in New Zealand, as a spinner, you start understanding the roles you need to play. You could be a match winner in your head, but on a first day wicket, which is seaming, when the captain gives it to you, you're not thinking, I'm going to rip the off pole or trying to get one caught at slip. Your thought processes are very different, isn't it? Going day to day. And is that something which you get by experience, or is that something which you can coach, say as a spin coach or somebody sitting outside constantly telling, look, this is your role, and not try and get too ahead of yourself? Or is it something which is within a bowler himself?
I think it's both. I think it took, if I think of my own experiences, by the end of my career, I tried to work from a simple formula of, in a T20 game, I want 1 for 24. In a one-day game, I want 1 for 40. In a test match first innings, I want to go for under 2 runs and over. And in the second innings, the game will present itself. And for me, that meant in a T20 game, if my first 3 overs went for 10 runs, I had an opportunity to attack for my 6 balls. If my first 2 overs went for 18, well, then I've got 12 balls to save these runs. And it allowed me to have a plan irrespective of ground size, people you're playing against, conditions. It was just a simple formula to this is because there's enough pressure as there is going on, as you know. There's lots of things happening, but if I know in the back of my mind, if I can perform this role that I've given myself, then I should get picked in the team the next game, and also you're doing a job. And I think that's what particularly young bowlers coming into T20 cricket, 1 for 24, 1 for 28, whatever it is, it gives them a touchstone when things are going badly. And I think that's what a lot of young spinners need, and that's what experience brings you. You're just trying to expedite that experience, is that when you're under pressure, you need something to fall back on, and maybe this is the thing for you. Is that what you do, similar things? You're smiling like that might have been similar to how you thought.
100%. It's the same. And this is something which I wanted to bring it about, and thankfully you led me on to it. Exactly the same. My thought process in white ball cricket was always like this. If I can go for 24 runs in my 4 overs, I've done a great job. If 5 bowlers think like that, we are only chasing 120. It doesn't happen that way, because you have a good day, somebody has a bad day, you compensate for that. And in white ball cricket as well, the lesser number of runs I give, the more opportunities I give myself and someone else to get wickets. So around 40, 45. Obviously, the benchmark has changed with the change of fields and the way the game has gone. the threshold levels have gone up. People getting hit for 55, 60 runs are also okay right now. And in red ball cricket, it was always about bowling well, Dan. It was always about bowling well. If I walk out onto the park, it is bowling well according to the situation. And that was it. The wickets will take care of themselves, and that was it. That was my simple thought process. And that's why I have a big issue, not a big issue, but this is something which I question, and I keep questioning on commentary as well. When people loosely say, with the new ball in white ball cricket, in T20 especially, look to get wickets. How do you look to get wickets? I bowl 1 over in the start, 1 over in the middle, or possibly not, or 2 overs in the power play, 2 overs in the end. What am I looking to attack? Who am I looking to attack with the kind of boundary sizes we have? How do you, even for a seamer, you need to have 2 slips, gully, short leg to attack. With deep point and deep fine leg, how do you attack? I don't understand that.
No, and I think that the use of the words aggressive and defensive, I think they're just misnomers, because it is about the situation. It's about that ball, and how does attacking help sometimes, and how does defending help sometimes? It's just knowing what you need to do. Because I think the best example I had of attacking and defending was I was bowling to Sangakkara, and talked about, well, let's bring mid-on up and we'll attack him. And I said, 100 times over 100, Sangakkara is going to hit me over mid-on's head. I can guarantee that. He's so good. So just because we bring him up doesn't mean we're attacking. It's more nuanced than that, and I think that's where the game gets lost a little bit for spinners, is that you've got to be an attacking spinner. Well, what does that mean? Because attacking spinner means you're going to have a day of none for 60, and that could completely ruin your chances of winning. Where if you have that consistency, you are helping the team win. And I don't like seeing spinners often go 3 for 20, none for 60, 1 for 40, because it's not. I think you can be better than that. I think it's easy to rein that in a little bit with a game plan rather than just attacking or defending.
Yeah, 100%. So imagine bowling to a Hayden, which both of us have done. A good ball, he can slog sweep, which means a deep mid wicket is actually a catching position. It's not a defensive position. And,
well, you're bringing him up for the 1 in 100 times he misses it, and I don't want the other 99 balls to go for 4 or 6, because I won't get another game.
100%.
So you end up with 1 for 400. It's not that satisfying.
Exactly, and I've seen him literally slog sweep everyone, and it's again you bowl to a batsman like Moin Khan, which you must have, who's somebody who's got a range of sweep which is from fine to he can slog you to long on. So imagine the change of angles and pace, which you're thinking, and you're also wondering how many fielders can I have there. So similarly, bowling to a Brian Lara, imagine somebody like a Murali, and he plays against the spin on a turning track. You need certain fielders literally to plug the runs. And that's where my next question was going to be, which school of thought are you from? I've always believed that if there is a batsman who's an aggressive batsman, plug his big shot and then ask him to come out with something else. And there are others who will say, allow him to hit a few shots, and then you can think of pushing the man back. Not with long on, long off. I've never been a big believer in pushing mid on and mid off back too often or too quickly. But some shots which you can just sit and literally force the bowler to change the length and the slide, I think those shots have to be plugged, is my school of thought. Where do you sit on it?
Well, I think there's 2 parts to it. I think the first part is when you're bowling to him. And the thing that used to frustrate me was my first ball, I needed to bowl to Hayden. Let's have long on up. Let's have mid wicket up, and then we'll see what happens. My first ball is inevitably my worst ball, because I need to warm up and get into it. It takes 6 or 7 balls just to feel right to get conditions. So let's bowl my worst ball with a slightly more defensive field. And and to be fair, that's Shane Warne's school of thought as well. He always talked about, I'll bring fielders in to put pressure on, rather than if I push fielders back, then the game's been taken away from me. And so there's the feel for you as a spin bowler. You're not feeling your best. You understand the batsman and what he can do and what he can't do, and therefore you're asking him to do something easy rather than something hard. And I think that's the thing that I always thought. You've got to ask that batsman to do something that's difficult for him. And Sangakkara, Hayden, Lara, walking down the wicket and chipping one over mid-on wasn't difficult for them. If you played on psyche or you tried different things, manipulated your field, then you're actually in a contest with them. I found when you were trying to be the so-called attacking is that you lost the ability to be in a contest with them, and therefore they controlled the game. And the other thing is, you know, it's like if your first over goes for 13, you just feel demoralised. It's going to take a while to get back in the game. Your first over goes for 2 or 3. I'm into it now. I feel I can control a few things. I know what the batsman's trying to do. I'm getting a read on him. So I think it doesn't allow the psyche of a spin bowler to stay in the game and control the game. And a spin bowler has to control the game to be effective.
Yeah, 100%. And I remember talking to Wani in Australia because that was my first tour, and I was just trying to figure out what needs to be done here. And he said, listen, obviously a bit more of overspin, which I'll come to, because you're somebody who's bowled with the Kookaburra. You're born and brought up on the Kookaburra. And the next thing he wasn't playing that series. The thing which he mentioned actually fascinated me, because I come from a school of thought where Bishan Bedi never allowed us to push any fielder back. I was never allowed a point fielder growing up. Never allowed a point fielder. He always used to say that that's for a back ball. All my life, till the fag end of my life, in days cricket, I've never kept a point for a left-hander. Unless and until I was bowling to somebody like an Owen Morgan or an Andy Flower who only play there. So that's a completely different scenario. So our school of thought was always, don't push anybody back. So it always was interesting when I spoke to him and he said that I generally keep everyone back and you need to stay in. And I didn't understand initially because that's the way he speaks. So I said, what does stay in mean? And he said, when you bowl the first over or 2, you don't want the captain to take the ball away from you. So he said, you need to stay in. You need to bowl a couple of good overs so that you're going to bowl a long spell rather than that being a curtailed spell. And then actually it hit home that there are times when in bravado or because you've been conditioned that way, you end up doing things. And that's where the experience comes from, that look, you can have a few fielders for the sake of that big shot and then get into your groove, get into your rhythm. What was your thought process going into it?
Exactly the same. And I think, and I was often not criticised, but just it was perceived as a sort of defensive mentality. And I was always, I'm not worried about, not all batsmen, but I'm not worried about a single to some of these great batsmen, because that's not what they're about. They're about dominating. They're about hitting their boundaries. And if I can take that away from them, then I get into the game and I can compete against them. If I'm just bringing my field up, then they're going to dominate because that's just the nature of the way they play. So what you said then fitted in perfectly to my psyche. And if I always thought if it was good enough for Warnie, then it should be good enough for everyone else.
Warnie and Muthaiya Muralitharan, whom you and me have played alongside and spent so much time in the nest, you know that he hates giving away runs, isn't it? He hated giving away runs. And somebody like him, since we have played with him, we know his psyche. He doesn't like people hitting into those pockets or those big shots. So when it works for somebody who's taken 66 5-wicket hauls and 37 10-wicket hauls, I think it works for everyone, Dan. I've got all these balls with me. And my next question is something which me, Harbhajan, have always wondered. How do you, Nathan Lyon, and all these guys bowl with this ball? This is the Kookaburra. And this is actually one of the old Kookaburras, which is, as you say, might be really nicely, because I'm going to compare it to an SG test, and I've got the Dukes as well from England. The SG test and Dukes are very similar, slightly different in color. But what is so good is that as a spinner, you've got that seam to hold on to even after 50, 60 overs. And I can say that the Dukes was possibly the best, which I enjoyed because it stayed very hard. That seam stayed very hard. This is the old school SG test, which was outstanding. I don't think they have found a more consistent ball when you release it. But please tell me, please, Dan, please, how did you bowl with this? This is like an odd shape. It feels like a more than round. It feels square when you hold on to it. After 15, 16 overs, it is actually like somebody has marked it with a sketch pen. There's no seam left. How did you do that?
Well, I think first of all, you need to differentiate between the white and the red ball. The white Kookaburra ball is fantastic.
Yes, I've got them as well.
Yeah, they're easy to hold on to, easy to bowl with. And I don't know what the difference is, but the seam said to hold together better. I never picked up a white Kookaburra ball and thought, oh, feels funny. The red Kookaburra ball, I'd have to go through a whole bag just to work out which one I was happy to hold on to in practice. But it is purely around the flatness of the seam, and that's that. With that flatness of the seam, you just got no grip, and like we talked about at the start, if you've got no grip, you've got no comfort, and as soon as you lose that comfort in your grip, then your confidence goes, and you don't feel like it almost slips out of your hand a lot of the times. It almost feels slippery, and that's the hardest thing, and that's what makes Nathan Lyon even more impressive, that he has done all these, been so successful with a Kookaburra ball. But I think the ball has deteriorated as the years have gone on. I mean, I don't remember the ball being changed so much when I first started playing, but by the end of my career, every couple of overs, someone was going up to complain about the ball and talk about getting it changed. And, the umpires are getting so frustrated with it. But you never really, I may be wrong, SG ball, I can't think of it being changed too often. And certainly the Jukes ball, I can't think of it being changed too often. And that, as you said, the seam makes it. And so that ability to grip it and to feel comfortable is because you have nightmares around the flat seam and whether you be able to hold it and be effective.
Yeah, exactly. For me, the conditions are alien. The conditions are seamer friendly. And in those conditions, if you give a ball which has got no seam, what do you expect the spinner to do there? Just be a mannequin on the move? That's exactly what you feel like sometimes, because you don't get the purchase, you don't get the drop, you don't get the bite, nothing, because when you can't hold on to something, how do you spin it?
No, we're in agreement again here. But as I said, I think the ball's deteriorating. So, I mean, they have to be investigating it to see. And I mean, with the potential new rules around how you look after the ball as well, whether that will make a difference to ability to grip it or not. I haven't really investigated, so I don't really know. But they could play a part too.
Yeah, this is the old school Kookaburra. It's quite old. So this one used to swing a lot. Nowadays, the ball doesn't even swing. Although you have two new balls, it swings possibly two balls. Somebody hits it, clatters it to the boundary, and it stops. It completely stops swinging. Dan, as a spinner, there are certain dismissals which you enjoy. What were those dismissals for you?
I think something that I always reflect back on. I think I got Ganguly, Dravid, and Tendulkar out at Kanpur. I think it was about 98 in a short space of time. So I think that though I mean, growing up, everyone obviously knows how good Tendulkar is. Dravid, I think, is the hardest batsman I've bowled to in terms of how ineffective I felt, that he just read length so well, and it just didn't feel like I could get him out. And then obviously Ganguly was so aggressive to left arm spin, and when he stepped out, more often than not, it went a long, long way. So to get those three with their obvious pedigree and to get them as a young spinner coming over to India was a pretty special memory.
No, but what I also meant was, what type of dismissal, what mode of dismissal do you enjoy?
So I think for me, stumping was a good feeling, because I think there were lots of things that play there. The fact that you read that batsman coming down, B, you bowled a ball good enough to beat him in flight, but not only in flight, then it actually had to spin as well to really allow that dismissal to take place. And the satisfaction of seeing a batsman sort of stumbling halfway down the wicket after you've deceived them, I think was incredibly satisfying, because so many things have to go right to your stumping, because you might beat him in the air and go straight up in the air, or he might hoik it for six or something like that. But to actually all of those little things to come into play was pretty satisfying. Self, what were you fan of?
For me, there were three dismissals which I really enjoyed. One was when you get the drift in and the batsman defends and the off pole goes, which means you've beaten him in flight, in length, and also that spin to knock the off pole or the off bail or whatever. And the second one to a right-hander was a defense and going straight to slip. That is something I really enjoyed, because that meant that I've bowled to lots of good batsmen here. So to get them out at slip, somebody like a Lakshman or a Dravid going to slip means, as you rightly said, they used to play ahead of their pads. They never played behind. So that means that the ball has enough fizz. You know, when the bat is behind the pad, it can still go. But whereas when the bat is ahead of the pads, that means that distance is longer as well. So to get them out like that, that was special. And to a left-hander, a defense bat pad popping onto, that gave me a great feeling because again, beaten him in that flight and drop and gave me a lot of satisfaction. Obviously, stumping is something when you made a fool of somebody, but just from a defense point of view, you know, also Dan, again, I think it boils down to conditioning. Excuse me. For me, growing up, Bishan Bedi and Manindra Singh always used to say, bowl on tracks which don't spin. And my victory against the batsman was every time I keep hitting the sticker. For me, when they defended, I should go and hit the sticker. So these were key points which they worked with. So it allowed you to develop as a bowler. And also while bowling single wicket, I was always told that if you're bowling into a net without a keeper, the ball should pitch and go and hit the net behind on the incline, not on the decline, which means that you've got enough fizz on the ball. So these were things which we were always working on. So from that point of view, we were so conditioned that, oh, bat pad, wow, to a left-hander, beating somebody in flight and drift. So those things really gave me a lot of confidence since you're asking me.
Yeah, those are nice. But through the gate as well as the left-hander. But I'll be happy with that as well. Those are fun. You get better high fives from your teammates when you get those wickets rather than just caught long on or caught mid wicket. Especially
the wicket keeper, because once somebody plays and it goes through the gate and he doesn't miss it and it hits the stump, he's happy as well.
Yeah.
Dan, you played under lots of captains. You've still been a captain. But still, you feel a captain has a huge role to play in the making of a spinner or a breaking of a spinner?
Oh, it's the biggest part of it. And that's why I think, I know I've heard you talk and I say it as well, is that unless a spin bowler can take control of his own game, then he's going to struggle, because not all captains will understand their role and how they can get the best out of them. If you can do that yourself, then that goes a long way. And sometimes you have to present yourself to the captain in that manner so that he trusts you to give you that responsibility, because I think a lot of captains want to do that, but it's easier said than done. So whether it's through planning, whether it's through confidence, whether it's through performance, to get to that point where you are in control of your destiny on the field. And what I mean by that is setting your own field, because you know what ball you're bowling, you understand the batsman, you understand what you're trying to do. And a lot of the times, even if you're not confident, you need to seek advice rather than wait for it to come to you, because the second you get it from somewhere else, that just puts, I suppose, multiple thoughts in your head, and you just get knocked off track. So I think the best spinners I've seen, whether senior statesmen or young bowlers, are the ones who can get to that point where they can control the game through their bowling, through their field placement, and through their confidence.
Yeah, but don't you think, I'm 100% with you on it. As a spinner, I'm the one who knows I should be setting the field. But to gain the trust, I can imagine you became Daniel Vettori, Anil Kumble became Anil Kumble, Harbhajan, Swan, Wani. All these guys became what they were, and hence the captain would say, there you go, set your field. One job less for me. But imagine a young spinner coming up who has to listen to a coach, who has to listen to the captain, because he feels that these are the guys who decide my future, my career, my bowling. How do you gain the trust? Because performance, hey, you're seeing me for the first time. You're my captain, you're seeing me for the first time. For me, till the time I don't get wickets, till the time I don't bowl, I'm not going to get wickets. Till the time I don't get wickets, I'm not going to get your confidence. How do you do that for guys coming into their career initially? For that, you need the captain's trust immediately, which doesn't happen all the time.
No, it's difficult, and I think it's probably harder than just a few bits of advice from us, because there's a lot that goes into it. There's a lot about personalities, a lot about dynamics. There's a lot about the situation at the time. But I think if you can almost present a plan that this is what I want to do. We talked before about this is what I want to do in a T20 or a one day or a first class game. Those are the those are the little things that you hope a captain would sort of take notice of. This guy's got control of what he wants to do. Your preparation for certain batsmen, how you prepare for a game, conversation. So, it would be difficult to give an overall bit of advice, but I think it would be around that preparation and showing your coach and captain the work and preparation and what you've done to get into it. I mean, that's always going to be an individual one that you build trust with the captain and personality, etc., etc. And if you get 5 wickets in your first game, then you're sweet, and then you can just do whatever you want.
Exactly. Who was your feedback friend in a cricket game? Who was your sounding board?
Normally wicket keepers. Keepers were always it. Early on. It was Adam Perori. He had a good understanding of my action, and when things weren't going quite right, he would explain it in his way, and I could work out what that actually meant for me. So I always found him a good sounding board. And I just think, I think, and also some of the fast bowlers over the years. I mean, I always think of the guys who, I think it's because you build up that camaraderie as a bowling unit. So you understand when it's their turn, when it's your turn, and they give advice. So I found the wicketkeeper was helpful sounding board for action. And I found my other bowlers around me were a good sounding board for tactics and how to go about the game.
Anyone in particular who was really good at that?
Well, Adam, as I mentioned, yes, I really like Jacob Oram. I think he had a good understanding and a good empathy around what was going on in the game. I mean, John Bracewell was always fantastic when he was coaching. So he was a real driver of tactical advice for me. Stephen Fleming was really good around tactical advice as well. But he was that captain that you dreamed about giving you the leeway and the freedom to set your fields. I'll tell you the story. So we played against Australia at the Wacker and bowling against Mark Waugh. And Mark Waugh hit me for one of the biggest sixes you'll see. Hit it onto the roof at the Wacker, and then I've also been hit there by Andrew Simons, the same spot, same end. And I beat him in the end. I said, catch it. Until today, Sachin Tendulkar ribs me that it was outside the ground. Who did you expect it to catch? I definitely beat Mark Waugh in there. I know I did that. And the next day in the paper, they had there was like a graph or a trajectory of where the ball would have ended up. And then 4 years later, we played at the Wacker again. And I was just about to bowl my first ball, and Flem stops the field, just runs over and goes, "Hey mate, you sure you don't want a man on the roof?" I was like, "Oh, have you been holding that for 4 years? You've been holding that for 4 years." And so that was.
No, he was a good sledger. He was a good sledger, wasn't he? He could sledge properly. He was proper. He seemed very quiet, but he was a good sledger. He's a smart man who can articulate things well, so it came rolled off the tongue easy. Yeah, I can still remember something which he said. It took me 2 minutes to understand with that accent and that slang which he used. As soon as I walked in, he thought that I was a night watchman the first time I walked in. He said, let's get the nightie, mate. And he was like, "Who's the nightie?" I said, "I'm not wearing any nightie." For us, nightie means anybody who wears that sleeping clothes and goes. Anyway, it took me a while to understand. Dan, you've always been a fabulous bowler with the white ball. In your own estimation, why were you so good? Change of pace, just the way you preempted what the batsman was going to do. It's always been ahead, and that's one of the reasons why wickets are different. For me, in my head, it's always about the ability to control the batsman, not allowing him to hit you. And I've always found you the best in that. Why were you so good?
I think you answered my question for me. I think that's. I was going to say. I think I had.
Sorry if I did that.
No. I think I had a strong intuition around what a batsman was going to do, and I backed those instincts more often than not. And I got that right a lot of the times, and that allowed me to bring my skills into play. But I think it was purely around I was trying to outthink a batsman, and coupled with that was outthink a batsman. But if I got it wrong, it wasn't a big mistake. And so to try to put those two things together in a white ball format allowed me to be economical. economical. So we talk about that attack and defense. That's how I think I combined the two, is that I knew I could bowl a ball that was either going to really trouble them if my intuition came off and that the batsman was going to play a shot that I thought he was going to do. And if he didn't, it wasn't going to be a catastrophe. It wasn't going to hurt me. It'd be a single or it'd be a dot ball. So just trying to read the game. I was always not overthinking, but I was always guessing, always trying to read cues and find out what a batsman's trying to do. And the one-day game allows that to happen more because you have the protection. You understand that a batsman's going to be more often than not be aggressive. And T20 was even more of that. I never had to overthink a T20 game because I knew everyone was just trying to slog it. So I just had to work out which area they were trying to slog it in and try and defend that. So for me, that was it, and that's what allowed me to compete in that format.
Was it something which you always had growing up? Because nowadays we have the advantages of all these computer analysts giving us stuff. But I still remember growing up, Vishan Bedi always used to say, "We've got the neck top. We don't need the laptop as bowlers," which means that you have your own memory bank of what a batsman has done to you. Is that why you were so good? Was that something that you had as well?
Yeah. I think I was always on the lookout as well. I never stopped looking at a batsman, or never stopped trying to guess what a batsman was trying to do and read those cues and understand when a batsman's going to charge and understand when he's going to be aggressive. And I think you can just feel it build in the game or the atmosphere. You can feel that tension. And then also you can read what's happened in the previous balls. So once again, we talk about that control of the game. If I've bowled 2 dot balls to a batsman, I know exactly what the next ball is going to happen. If the batsman's hit me for 2 singles in a row, then I'm slightly on the back foot. He's got the upper hand. He may be aggressive the next ball. He may be content with a single, but it was all about that ability to control the game. So then I could guess what a batsman could do. And if he hit me for 6, I knew it was coming, and I hadn't quite executed the ball to negate it. If I was upset at myself if I was surprised. So if I bowled a ball and a batsman ran down and hit me for 6, and at no stage did I ever think that was going to happen. That's what hurt me the most around not being ahead of the game. So trying to control the game, be ahead of the game, read the batsman, understand the game scenario, all those things went into a feeling, because you don't run through that checklist before every ball. It's just that feeling that you've got. I think this is going to happen, and I'm going to back that intuition and go for it.
Yeah, again, lots of similarities in the way we have thought. This is something which I wanted to, check with you as well. Sometimes people talk about the dot ball factor in T20 cricket. Oh, they always rave about the number of dot balls somebody bowled. But in a match situation, say you've bowled 2 or 3 dot balls to a Chris Gayle or a Brendan McCullum or a Suresh Raina, I feel that the art of giving a single of that 4th ball is huge, rather than trying to bowl the 4th dot ball, which means you end up getting hit for a 6, because those guys want a release of pressure as well. Whereas if you try and bowl the 4th dot ball, you end up going, but somewhere down the line, if you know the knack of giving a single, which means the batsman's at the other end, you bowl to a different batsman. Is that something which you approve of, or you think it's okay to think like that?
Absolutely, I'd be kicking the ball out to long on so it goes for a single, because you don't want to bowl a 5th baller in a row to Chris Gayle. Goodness gracious, that's terrifying. So no, I think 100% that ability to understand the game and then release the pressure in your favour, I think is huge, because that release of pressure. Because I think sometimes we also get caught up in the you're the only one out there who can do anything. It's like, well, if I bowl 2 dot balls, a single, another dot ball, even if I go for 4 off the last ball, that's only 6 off the over, and then I hand it on to the next bowler who may reap the rewards of that particular over that you've just bowled. And that's why I think economy is such an important part of the T20 game, because it combines with someone else to take wickets. You look at, I don't know, the Aussie team at the moment, they're so impressive, and Stark takes wickets, but he's expensive. But there's other guys around them who allow him to be expensive. The Indian team's the same. I think there's just that you don't all have to be the same. You just have to be a team, and that ability to complement someone is so important. And it comes back to your point earlier on around, everyone's got to be attacking. We need to take wickets. You've got to complement what your team has. And I understand sometimes through my career when I probably wasn't taking the wickets I should have, that we didn't have the complementary pieces around, so I probably needed to attack more. But when you sit behind Shane Bond and Chris Martin and those sorts of guys, then I knew I could be a complementary piece and play a part in the team rather than worry about what my personal figures look like.
Danny, if I had 705 wickets and any left-arm spinner had 705 wickets put together, so many wickets in Test cricket, 362, I think nobody's defensive over there, my dude. You're not giving yourself enough credit there. People don't listen to anybody. What you were fabulous. You were just absolutely outstanding. And I think just the ability, and that is something which I've always raved about. Look, I've had the benefit of having spoken to you and played against you and played with you in the same team. So I understand the thought processes behind it, but just your ability to bowl in that one-day cricket later, the later overs, in spite of being a finger spinner. And that is where I keep telling people, sometimes they say leg spinners and these guys are better off and more successful. It's possibly because they bowl different lengths. And as a finger spinner, if you have that control to bowl different lengths in white ball cricket, according to your will, how good would that finger spinner be? Rather than just bowling one length and getting clattered, the ability to bowl different lengths which you had at will is something which is gold.
Yeah, I mean, and so fortunate that like T20 cricket came around to actually allow those to really embellish those skills. I think it would have been the same. That with one day in Test cricket were in some ways a similar type of bowling. Obviously, people got more aggressive with one day cricket as it went on, but T20 really allowed a different set of finger spinning skills, and it didn't always look pretty. I mean, bowling an arm ball Yorker may not look pretty, but it's a skill, and it's a dot ball, and it keeps the batsman on strike, and it builds pressure, and all those sorts of little things. So I think T20 really allowed finger spinners to know what a batsman's trying to do, so you could work out a method, but B, you could try different things.
Hey, any commentator who says you can't bowl a Yorker, please tell the fast bowlers not to bowl slow ones as well, because they are running in from afar and bowling slow ones when they get hit. So they are changing their pace. Why can't the spinners change? And it's such a difficult place to be, because 60-yard boundaries, huge bats, even the top edges go for 6. And give me 110 yards. I'll throw it up in the air as much as you want. But if you're going to give me 60 yards with Chris Gayle and all those guys wielding those heavy bats, who's going to fly? And that comes to my next question. And look, that is the way the world is going, which we have to accept. There's no two ways about it. We've come from a generation where we learned it in a different way. We bowled in a different way. 25, 26 years down the line, Dan, from the time you played for the first time to now, we are coaches and we are commentators and looking at the next lot of bowlers. How do you reach a balance between developing the red ball skills, where you get the drop and the flight and everything, and also getting or preparing a bowler for white ball cricket, which means doing these dirty things, being mentally aware? Where do you find that balance? Because nowadays you only get guys who are darting the ball in, but when it comes to test match cricket, they can't price out those wickets, which we spoke about. So how do you find that balance as a coach? Does it start young?
Yes.
Do you coach the same set of bowlers to be a bit more patient and then play T20 cricket later? Where is the formula there?
I think it comes all the way back to it talked about at the start about getting the red and white ball and continuing on to learn how to bowl a top spinner, because if you can do that, you're in great positions and everything else becomes easier and easier. I think I try to set up training to be 80% test practice, and that's not to bowl in that manner, but I want guys to be able to continue to bowl that top spinner, so they have plenty of revolutions of the ball, they're drifting it and effective, and if they bowl that ball more often than not, even in T20 games, they're going to be effective with it. And then the other part of it is, well, let's find these little skills, these little different things we can do to make you to make one ball out of your 24 better, or two balls out of your 24 better. And then it is about that mentality, because I think you can't get away from the fundamentals of what your individual spinner's good position is that allows him to feel comfortable in his grip and holding the ball. So I don't think training should change. I think it should have a 4-day focus or a test match focus, and then all the other little bits, just the add-ons, and you can be just as good, effective a bowler in all formats. It's the same for batsmen. When batsmen go into the nets, they don't often just go and slog from ball one. They bat, they feel comfortable, and then they might have 10% of their net might be trying to hit sixes or something like that. So I think it's the same for a spin bowler, and working out what that formula is for the individual.
Dan, having started young, is there a right age for a spinner to come in? Because 3 weeks after your first class debut, you were playing Test cricket, and as in your own admission, you started as a seamer. Within a year and a bit, you were a spinner, full-fledged spinner, and tasting success in international cricket. Is there a right formula there, or is it again, as you see a bowler, his skill, his maturity, so you blood him? Is that how you look at it?
Yeah, I think so. But I also think even if you get it wrong in terms of bringing someone in too early or bringing someone in too late, doesn't mean there's not a second chance or a third chance. And I think too often now, particularly for young spinners, quite dismissive of a bad game, a bad series, and they drop down 4 or 5 places on the pecking order. So I don't think there's a right or a wrong time to introduce a spinner. That's purely understanding that individual, whether he can compete and have the mentality to work in international cricket or first class cricket, whatever it is. But it's just that ability to I suppose give the spinner multiple chances, because it can be hard. It can be very hard at times. Yeah. The points you made around small boundaries, big bats, all that sort of stuff. Spinners are allowed to learn and get better just like everyone else. So there's no right or wrong time to introduce them. I think for me, it's always about the perseverance, understanding when if it doesn't go well, when the opportunity for the next time is.
I think it's also gotten tougher for the spinners in white ball cricket, especially in one-day cricket as well, isn't it? Imagine one fielder less for 40 overs, and then bowling with a relatively new ball. Imagine this ball in the 48th over facing a Murali, Glenn Mushtaq or Daniel Vettori with slightly darker greenish tinge compared to a 24-over-old ball with one fielder less. Or it's getting tougher for these spinners as well with whatever is happening around.
Yeah, I'm glad I don't have to bowl anymore. But yeah, look, I think that's the evolution of it all. You see the likes of, once again mentioned, Chahal around. He bowls late, he bowls aggressive in that time. He doesn't mind getting hit for 6 as long as he takes wickets. So I think it's just working out how that spinner can be effective. And for Chahal, it's sort of 6 or out bowling. For me, it might be trying to bowl Yorkers and go for economy. And I think that's the great thing about spin bowling, is the amount of different types of spin bowler you can be. Not only leg spin, finger spin, left, right arm. It's about the style that you bowl in as well. And I think that's why people love spin bowlers. I think there's a real sort of almost mythical thing about it, that there's only one of them, and the great stories around Shane Warne and Murali and all those great bowlers. And I think that's the fun thing about spin, about working out how you can be effective with your own style.
Did you ever try the other one? Pulling leg spin, like Kuldeep? No,
I only admire leg spinners. I mean, I just feel like it could go wrong so quickly. I don't even want to. I mean, because all left arm spinners get the yips at some stage. It might happen to us when we're 60, but we'll get the yips and we won't be able to bowl.
Did you ever have the yips?
No, I'm still waiting for it, but I know it's going to happen one day. And we're bowling to my son in the backyard, and we'll just bounce it 3 times. And
You're right. Thankfully done. Dan,
yeah.
It's been an absolute pleasure, mate. It's just really, really thanks for being on this. Thanks for being on Spin Talks. And it's just a refreshing chat, which we generally have, but it's good that we've got this here as well. So thanks for your time, and stay safe and see you soon.
Thanks, Kartik. Really appreciate that. All the best, mate.